my, oh my, oh my. It got dark so fast, didn't it? The seductive hand of the underworld, the delighted grip of the overworld, redwoods, alabaster, and prophets, that eyes can revel, reveal, and poison, that glint of gold, mothered pearls, and the deepest blue. Welcome to Club Chicxulub. It's not that scary all the time, but tonight, I can't be so sure. Thank you so much. And this is our first time doing this show. This is Club Chicxulub VII, but the first time here at Ocean Ale House. Miles and Daniel, neighborhood friends. We are all locals here, so very, very proud of that to be doing this. So if you are moved by anything in this show, which you're about to see tonight, please tip your performers. Everybody here is from Bay, so you are tipping local people who are here doing art for you. It goes 100% to them. So it also goes to the house. Buy a beer and tip these fine motherfuckers. Sorry. Because they are fine people. But please, tip Ocean Ale House. It's great. Tonight we explore the darkness together with 6 performers. Leaving the siren songs of the underworld for the redwoods and your eyes, 4 poems from Kelechi, Ubozoh. The siren song itself and the light blade of horror of the shy ones from Chelsea Davis. Dye-induced blindness in any color you'd like from Kristin Eade. A dark wave of blue beings in the Department of Brotherly Affairs from Duane Horton. To preserve and conserve against the decomposition of home in the hand you cannot see from Alexandra Clemente Perez. And the soundtrack to the horror and the beauty, Dark Wave on a Wave of Phase, music from DevBot Shipwreck Detective. My partner, Lauren Johnson.
Thank you. So we love the Bay Area. We love the city, and we love the town. And to love the Bay Area means acknowledging that Club Chicxulub is located on unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. And we as Club Chicxulub stand against settler colonialism in all its forms in this beloved place we call home and globally. And because acknowledgements are not meaningful without action, I encourage folks to visit the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone website to support their work. And for folks in the East Bay, visit the Sigorite Land Trust, which is led by Indigenous women, and they're doing really rad work around land rematriation. Thank you so much. Welcome to Club Chicxulub. We will see you on the other side.
relationship status. See, Death and me, we've got this thing. I flirted with her once, twice, okay, thrice, and she hooked right in. Visited her in the underworld, and she showed me some things. Psychedelic curved moons, a world without end. Her most enticing, grandma's warm embrace, whispers, "Come home," curls up in my lap and purrs like a hungry, fat cat. We could leave this all behind. I'll admit, I've been tempted, almost succumbed. She croons to me sweetly, "Your time here is done. Join me in Persephone, pomegranate in hand. But back on Earth, see, I've got my man. Sweet brown eyes, a wide grin, only person who knocked and I've let in. He's cunning and kind, makes it easy to be. Made a home in his bones, and he gave me the key. This year, he's been to funerals 3, and I'll be damned if the next one is me. So death, a seductress, an escape from pain, must ungrip from her claws, 'cause I hear my man. You think your exes suck? Let's go for a ride. Have you ever gone to the shadow worlds, behind the veil, the other side? There was no grandma with her rose gardens and balm for my pain. It faded to black. It was just the end. Awake and shook on the bathroom floor, misquote the raven, damn it, no more. I decided to stay. Death said, oh, what a bore. Look, she means well, despite dragging me to literal hell. Last year, I made vows under redwoods bent, till death do us start was not in fine print. So even though I feel so alone, I know it's time to put temptress death back in the friend zone. Don't tell the shark. My anger is patient, cold, bored, frozen. Angry black woman? Not with this resting nice face. The rage is patient. Foundations of self-suppression built on bones of broken redwoods. Chrissy calls me, newly blonde and weepy. No, blue and weepy. Her pandemic tresses, a new phase, attention received. Since our teenage years, I've lived in a state of deep admiration mixed with fear. Admiration of her magnetic force, fear that her extreme warmth will burn me alive. She grants me passage to her rare displays of tenderness. I am special. I am loyal. Long ago, we were dancing in the Mission District at a house party. Chris's muscles gleam, everything tight. She whispers when we're alone how she must get cut, angled, sharp, strong, fit. All things round and soft disgust her. I am round and soft. Overdressed with bright pink lipstick on this brown face, I'm invisible. The black boys surround Chrissy like bees to a queen, honey thick on her sculpted calves. She takes one home and will keep him for 90 days, her expiration date. Swelling with sorrow, my anger is patient, but who am I angry with? The black boys she brings home, they always want to be friends with me, playful and teasing, awarding me nicknames with a short shelf life. Forgive me, their eyes say. My smile is all teeth to consume scraps of attention, better than starving. Is it? Shake it off, smile, scream on the inside. She hates her white daddy. I say I hate my black daddy, and interracial dating pisses both of them off. She laughs, and it fills the moon. I itch, I bury, I bleed, I mask. Screams on the back patio with 90 Day Bay. I rush to rescue someone. Unclear who needs saving, since Chrissy coaxes the flames of any dispute. Then, the word. It travels quickly with daggers to the destination. I freeze the forbidden word, spilling from her lips, a weapon to this black boy who heard it everywhere, but with the white woman he's with. Shame and hurt flood my senses. Fury crawls up my back. It's all so inconvenient. Shake it off. Lie to myself. Easier to forgive her than to punish her. She crumples into a heap and cries. I drive her home. I keep her secret. I stuff it all down to vomit up years later. My anger is patient. Part 2. It's too bad he went and offed himself, says Chris. I really wanted to use his space. We are in Chris's backyard and the sun is high. She stretches arm wide and shimmers in the sun. She is cold and beautiful. My words are stolen in the face of her cruelty, because I know she means it. She is inconvenienced by this man's suicide. Like when you were driving home and you accidentally take a wrong turn and you were 5 minutes late. 5 fucking minutes late is the equivalent of her energy for a friend's death. The worst part is, I believe her. Older versions of myself make excuses for her abandonment issues and her childhood trauma, but that twinkle in her eye, like she's letting me in on a secret, the hint of a corner of a smile on the corner of her mouth, this is the truth. It's my turn to speak. Brian killed himself? A quiet echo to the narcissus on my right. Oh, I didn't tell you? He ran out of money. It was like back in March. That space was so nice. I too have hung in the balance of life and death. She knows this. I was even in a documentary about it, streaming on Amazon. She's seen it twice. Shit, she's even in it. They cut her out on the editing floor, cut her out. I leave her in the friendship that day, and unlike the times I tried before, I know this will stick. Slowly, I untangle the complex web of guilt, love, fear, and loyalty. Black savior complex extinguished. There is no conversation. My girl T says, if you were in the water with a shark, you don't tell the shark you're leaving. She smells blood. I sage my body and my house. I light a candle for Brian. I will not save this white woman who steps on the necks of others and spits in the face of life. So I leave her. At last I leave.
Augurs Ill, an excerpt. When they were sick, which was often, the sisters sang to pass the days in bed and to distract themselves from the pain. They only ever sang one song, a story in verse of their own invention. It was hours long and growing longer. Most of the verses the girls composed and sang together. Lying side by side, they'd press hot forehead against hot forehead so that they could think harder and numb their aching skulls. Their groggy voices overlapped as they worked each line to perfection, sometimes bursting into giggles at their own wickedness. Mother didn't believe in any songs except for church hymnals. But Nell, the elder sister, had also written a short stanza all her own. The words had come to her in a dream when she was 6, the age that Maggie was now. Shy ones are but frail and thin. Shy ones want to stay within. Keep them safe inside your skin. These lines were a source of great satisfaction to Nell, not just because of their perfect rhyme, but also because of the special access to the shy one's inmost desires that they implied. For reasons she would not share, though, Maggie refused to sing Nell's verse. The smaller girl's silence during this part of the song vexed Nell to the point of madness, and she would yank at Maggie's dark brown hair and shriek what she thought of as her cruelest insults. Snail eater, demon lover. Still, Maggie stayed mute, offering up no defense against the attacks, except to curl tighter and tighter into a ball, her bony back turned to her apoplectic sibling. Every few weeks, the migraines returned, piercing the girls' foreheads with swords made of light, showing them the creatures inside their heads while they wept and thrashed. About a day later, the sharper pain would fade into a heavy fog, leaving them exhausted, but filled with fresh inspiration from what they'd seen at the height of their agonies. What they were proudest of, the pair agreed, in rapid whispers, was the way the melody shifted almost undetectably over the course of the song. Most of the other music they knew, from church or from Mother picking at the piano below their bedroom, followed a horrendously predictable structure, verse and chorus repeating ad nauseum. Only the occasional bridge broke through the tedium with a key change, giving the listener that funny goose-flesh feeling that mattered most. But their song slid and shimmered with near-constant accidentals, rarely remaining in the same key signature or even mode for more than a verse or two. The effect they hoped to achieve was of the main theme playing hide and seek with the listener, forever just out of sight, as coy and hard to capture as the shy ones that lived inside their heads. One muggy morning in early June, the girls lay in bed on the third day of a headache. Nell held Maggie in her arms, absently brushing the younger girl's sweaty curls back from her forehead as they both stared out the open window. Today, the electric trills of the cicadas were especially loud, and the girls listened intently for inspiration. Maggie had been quiet all morning, but now, without turning to face her sister, she took a breath and opened her mouth to speak. "You know, Nell, I have my own verse to add." At first, Nell thought she'd misunderstood. Then she thought maybe her sister was making a tasteless joke. But Maggie's next words made clear that this was not the case. "It came to me in a dream, sister, just like yours, a gift." When Nell still did not reply, Maggie rushed to fill the silence. She sang in her high, thin soprano, and Nell could hear the nervous smile in her voice as she did. "Hear them cry and hear them shout. Throw wide the door, there is no doubt. The shy ones want to be let out." Her last note lingered in the air before giving way to a heavy quiet once more. At last, Maggie felt her sister's grip on her shoulder tighten, and the older girl spoke slowly, as if only consummate control could keep her anger at bay. "This is false, sister. The shy ones would never say such things." Maggie's eyes became hot and wet, blurring the field beyond the window into a mess of browns and greens. Her headache was sharpening again, too, a wave of pain gathering from the pool where it had been gently idling. She turned to face her sister and pushed her small body up on one arm so that she was looking down at Nell. "They did so, just last night, in the middle of my sleep. They grinned their special grins as they spoke to me." "Nonsense. When they came to me, they told me just the opposite. They hate and fear the world outside our heads. The sun would boil them alive, and the science men would catch them up in little jars." "You must have heard them wrong. They yearn for freedom. It's stuffy and horrid inside of us. A slap across the face stopped Maggie's sentence in its tracks. Stunned, she kept her head turned to the right, where Nell's hand had moved it. "Your words are evil, Maggie. You will anger them." Maggie shook her head softly. She had known Nell might react this way, but had held out hope that she wouldn't. Now she was furious with herself for having hoped. Maggie heaved herself all the way up onto her knees and crawled off the bed. She walked unsteadily to the bedroom door, opened it, and let herself out, never once turning to give her sister the satisfaction of seeing her face, for the tears had finally loosed themselves and could not now be stopped. In the long gray weeks after the fight, Maggie stayed in the cellar, sleeping on a once peach-colored couch that their mother didn't need but couldn't be bothered to get rid of. The thing was rank with mildew and frequented by centipedes, but at least no tyrant older sister held court there. Their mother assumed this choice to sleep separately was a natural step in Maggie's already belated development. and allowed the game to continue so long as she occasionally came up to eat with the rest of the family. These meals were the only times the sisters saw one another. Their mother, spent as she was with her own headaches, which she had most days, didn't seem to notice the hostile silence that arced between the girls across the table. In the afternoons, Maggie could lose the dreary hours in the acres of meadow near the house. At night, though, she found it hard to sleep. The sisters' song had always doubled as their lullaby, but it was woven of tight, alternating harmonies that sounded feeble and strange with just one voice. Mostly she passed the time from sundown to sunup playing with the centipedes that lived in the couch and trying to trick the shy ones into showing themselves. Of course, they never did. Only the pain could bring them on. Soon, she got her wish. A migraine settled upon her, the worst of her life, its weight so massive she marveled her head did not cave in from the pressure. As she moaned through gritted teeth and kicked the back of the couch, Maggie thought of the Salem witch, crushed to death by larger and larger stones. Mother said his refusal to confess had proved his guilt. She could hear Nell wailing upstairs, too, in her lower alto. Screeching light made its way into Maggie's field of vision now, even as she shut her eyes up tight. The veins of the back of her eyelids lit up in bright purple rivulets. Familiar faces were taking shape there, too. The shy ones were small and white, their faces wrinkled like a newborn babe's, or perhaps a very old man's. They smiled and gnashed their teeth in greeting and began their hissing whispers. 3 days later, in the late evening, Maggie finally felt the vice around her head begin to loose its grip. She lay on the couch half-conscious, her body limp like a rag that had been wrung out again and again. She wiped her vomit-ringed mouth with the sleeve of her dressing gown and hoisted herself slowly up. As soon as she was sitting, the soft staccato of footsteps 2 stories above her. Suddenly, the door to the basement stairs swung open with a crash, and the hallway light lit up a small shape in the doorway. "Nell!" Maggie cried out before she could think not to, and then her sister was running down the stairs and jumping onto the couch and folding up the sitting girl's whole torso in her arms. "Maggie!" Nell gasped, gripping harder, a hot sob in her voice. "Oh, Maggie, it was awful. They were awful. They were so loud and so very ugly this time, so much more ugly than before. Yes, with their mouths of spikes and glass, and with their theater shows of flesh. Oh God, the stump machine, the tooth puller, the eye squeezer. I begged them to stop showing me Nell, but they only laughed and showed me more." Nell breathed out hard, bringing down her arms from the hug and taking one of Maggie's hands in her own. She lowered her gaze, then brought it up again to meet her sister's gray eyes. "Maggie, you were right," she spoke slowly now. "We have to let them out." Thank you.
Chameleon Queen. It used to be, if you wanted to change your eye color, you used dye. Often this damaged the eye, especially if you used bootleg dyes brewed in basements. The dye would turn your eye whatever color you wished, lavender, maroon, sea glass. But it would eventually fade away, sometimes taking your eyesight with it. But now, you can simply pop out your eye and get an implant that lets you program your iris's color. Eye mods have cut dye-induced blindness by nearly 60%. Which is bad news for me, because it means far less people coming to me for bootleg dyes brewed in basements. You have to be careful, obviously. Clandestine location, network jammers, no security cams. Operating without a modding license is a felony. But licenses cost too much for us poor folk. "What's that?" asked the teenager sitting across from me, pointing to a slim machine nearby. We sat knee to knee in a cramped closet, way down in the depths of a subterranean business center. She had paid with a fistful of credits, clearly grabbed from her parents' secret stash. I make the dye in that, I said. She nodded. Can I have orange? You can have whatever color you want, I said, taking a drag from my sporette. Murky brown smoke filtered upwards, shimmering in the sickly fluorescent lighting. The first hit calmed my synapses, clicking and popping as they struggled to manage the headache blooming behind my eyes. Should you be smoking that? The girl asked. And why do you have eye mods if you deal in dye? I set the sporette down and took a deep breath. Because when I was your age, somebody botched my dye job, I said. I left out the part that it was me. I had botched my own dye job and made myself blind. But beauty is pain, as they say. You know, RGB is kind of garish, especially for someone your age, the girl said. Even though I managed to silence her with a glare, shame flashed through my body. I made a mental note to reprogram my eyes later. All right, it's time, I said. Lean back, look up, and get all your blinks out now. She furrowed her brow and said, What? I held up the lid speculum. The girl swallowed, eyeing the delicate wire contraption. Can we do it without that? She asked. Not if you want your entire eye to be orange, I said. She nodded solemnly, and her body grew taut like a quivering rope. I gripped the speculum. With more gentleness than she deserved, I peeled back her upper eyelid and slid the wire under. The delicate skin began to twitch, fighting to blink, aching for one more wet swipe across all that cue ball whiteness. Almost done, I said, lifting her lower lid and sliding the second wire under. Everyone became ugly when their eyeballs were overexposed. Luckily, I'd never be caught looking like that again. Thank God for mods. I worked quickly, dispensing micro drops of dye onto her iris until it burst into a navel orange. When we finished, I handed her a small mirror. She stared at herself so long I wasn't sure if she felt elation or regret. Orange was an odd choice, after all. Definitely not trending. You can schedule your follow-up appointment with Igor, I said, sliding her an old-fashioned paper business card. He's great, and he won't tell your parents. After the girl left, I flicked the switch behind my ear and turned my net connection back on. Immediately, my headache eased its knee up from my skull as my sensors came back online, flooding my nerves with data rather than pain. I hated turning off my connection, but going dark was the only way to ensure no one knew where I was or what I was doing. I dialed Igor in my head. What's up, Q? Igor said when he finally answered. Got another one coming your way, I said. Female, maybe 15 or 16. She asked for orange eyes. She'll be blind by morning. Thanks, doll, Igor said. Hey, you know, we ought to celebrate soon. Celebrate, I said. Yeah, this'll be your 100th referral. I haven't been counting, I said, taking another drag from my sporette. Hey, can you wire me my cut now? My software's out of date. I've been running that version from 2 updates back. Oh, was that the version all those people hacked into? Igor asked. Unfortunately, yes, I said, massaging between my eyes. So hurry it up. I packed up my dye machine and climbed my way out of the business center. When I stepped outside, a ka-ching popped in my ear, and I pulled up my bank account. 5,000 credits richer. Immediately, I bought the software update. It's gonna take 2 hours to download this thing, I said. That's the price you pay for being lax, Igor said. I'm not being lax, I'm being poor. Before Igor could lecture me about finances, I cut the line. I hailed a taxi and hopped in. I shared my connection and let the taxi grab my apartment's coordinates from my brain cache. The sleek craft hovered up and began streaking through the crowded, smoggy skies of LA. The city bubbled beneath layers of grime and static, aching for its once glitzy heyday. About halfway home, the taxi doors auto-locked. I frowned and tried to manually roll the lock back, but it stuck fast. Location override, the taxi's automated voice said, and the holoscreen projected a new route bound eastward. I reached to type the coordinates in for my home again, but I didn't reach. My entire body was frozen. I tried to send out an SOS alert, but my network was stuck downloading the software update. I was, in body and in network, paralyzed. We circled down, landing on a quiet street where rows of sagging palm trees stood sentinel behind electric iron fences, corralling in cheap concrete houses. A silhouette appeared outside the taxi. "Quinn Jackson?" a voice asked as the taxi rolled down its window. My breath caught in my throat. No one knew my real name except for my mother. An ordinary nobody woman appeared. Before she said anything else, a hollow on her lapel projected a badge in front of her. "I'm with the Office of Illegal Body Modification," she said. "I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes." She slid into the taxi. "You should know better than to run out-of-date software and link up with a public network," the woman said. "I don't think I've ever hijacked anyone's body faster." I checked my software update, stuck at a measly 15%, and wished I hadn't burned my last credits on those RGB irises. We stared at each other for a while before the woman spoke again. "I'm going to turn off our connections, so make sure you behave," she said, before reaching up a hand to flip the switch behind her ear. Then she flipped mine, and the pain flooded back, and the comforting ebb and flow of data dropped away. The silence made my guts writhe, but control came back to my body, and I could move again. "I understand you're an illegal eye dyeist colluding with other body modders," the woman said. "I'm sure it's lucrative as hell, especially with all those new eye models coming out recently." My lips melted together, sealing in all sounds. "Oh, did you think I was here to arrest you? Don't worry." The woman reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a brick of credits. "I need to improve my numbers," she went on. "Turns out illegal body modders are more slippery than I thought, and the chief's up my ass for numbers that make our department look good. Budget cuts are a bitch." "How is that my problem?" I asked. "Because you're going to give me the names I need," she said. I narrowed my eyes. "I'm not a rat," I hissed. "For the right price, anyone's a rat. You'll get immunity and 100,000 credits for every name you give me," the woman said. "You get the money you so clearly need, and our department's incarceration rates soar the way the chief wants them to. We all win." I did the math in my head and nearly choked at the amount. "They'll come after me," I said. "Then we'll protect you," she offered. I wanted to retch at the thought of selling out my network. People I'd worked with for years, especially Igor. He was a good man, fighting to stay in the States, fighting to keep his family fed and their medical debt down. If I sold him out, not only would I ruin Igor, I'd damn his family too. I'd damn everyone. But I'd be able to change my face. Reconstruct it with carbon fiber cheeks and a svelte new cartilage nose, just the way I'd always wanted. I could bash beauty into every pore so Igor would never recognize me. And when I sold out the next illegal modder, I'd rearrange my face again into whatever type of beauty was trending. And then I'd do it again and again until I had lived 100,000 lives, until my neurons forgot Igor and the shame of selling him out, until I had become the chameleon queen I'd always dreamed of becoming. Rags to riches, organic to industrial, meat to metal. I took a deep breath and started saying names.
Thank you. Gerard knew it as it was. Hanging over him, a dark blue being, dark as the ocean waters outlined in black, its arms offering a halo around his head, its own head faceless, leaning on its own shoulder. Halfway below its torso, there was nothing but the space between it and the ground, but the space that ran down Gerard's tall frame. "Welcome to A53. Gerard stood in line with the rest of the men. The being stood still above him, its head still leaning on one of its shoulders, listless, maybe. Otherwise known as the Department of Brotherly Affairs. The men looked amongst each other. They were all standing in line, wearing gray jumpsuits and hard hats. These men are now your brothers, the introductory announcement continued, prompting the guys down the line to greet each other with awkward smiles or furrowed brows. Everyone except Gerard, who stood stoically, except to pull at the hem of his sleeves. There's only one rule in A53, and that is to build. Construction starts today. Look to your brothers for support, as you will be expected to address each other as such. The announcement went dead, and Gerard raised an eyebrow as he looked around. Already, the men had broken into groups, and already he'd been left out. The being above him shifted its head to its other shoulder. Hey, sis. Gerard cocked his head to the side. When he looked behind him, he could see another guy, shorter than him, but not short, with big eyes and long eyelashes. His name tag read Dion. Hey, Gerard returned the smile that was on Dion's face. Can you believe they chose us for the A53 department? Dion asked as he looked around, a look of curiosity in his raised eyebrows. Gerard shared his curiosity as the being above him lifted its faceless head front and center, still blue. By the looks of it, it seems like we're the odd ones out, Dion continued as the other men glanced looks of contempt in their direction, wondering why they were chosen to be amongst the construction brothers of A53 themselves. After the job market officially crashed, the government began to open new job departments to provide wages for the economically disadvantaged. Some of the new departments were stranger than others, and even though A53 paid well, there was a mystery about it too. Girl, Gerard sighed. He looked around and then looked back at Dion. Do you even know what we're building? Brother? Gerard heard a voice from behind him. He took off his hard hat to wipe the sweat from his forehead before turning around. Building something from the ground up wasn't easy, and he could feel it in his back. And although they had been working on this project for over a month now, living in the quarters provided, Gerard still didn't know what they were building. And on top of this, the blue being above him had been standing at alert lately. Can you point me towards the lunchroom? The guy asked, and Gerard was brought back to the moment. New here, huh? Gerard faced the man. He was tall, but not taller than the being above him, with eyes sharper than the steel they worked with, and the same color, too. It's through those doors and down the hallway to your left. Thanks. The guy tipped his hard hat at him and fast-walked towards his destination. Who was that? Dion asked, fanning himself with his hands as if the sight of him made him hot. It was just the two of them now, like it had always been since they started working in A53, isolated amongst their brothers and disincluded. I don't know, Gerard said back, feeling at home with Dion, so who needed them anyways? Did you catch his name tag? Dion looked back at the guy who Gerard had pointed towards the lunch hall. He turned back slightly, saying hello to one of their brothers on his way towards the lunchroom, and that was when Dion caught his name tag. Looks like his name is Willie, Dion said. Gerard humped, blowing steam from his nose. He's the only one of our brothers who acts like we aren't completely invisible, Gerard pointed out, and Dion nodded his head in agreement, both of them trying to make sense of this new brother who seemed to be okay with them, even though Gerard walked with a sway in his hips and hung his wrist out limp. You all right? The voice startled Gerard, who was working on some small, still confusing aspect of this huge construction project. Another month had passed, and everything about this project still seemed so intricate and jumbled that Gerard could only guess that they were building a maze. But for who and for what, Gerard still couldn't tell. The being above him still stood at alert, its arms still a halo around his head, its faceless head facing forward, attentive and focused, but on what, Gerard couldn't tell. "Yeah, I'm good," Gerard responded, leaving out the part that things had been getting worse with the brothers, that they had begun mocking his sashaying walk, that more and more something seemed strange about this department and what they were building. "Why?" Gerard followed up. "You've just been looking a little blue, is all. Do you need to see the medic?" "What?" Gerard looked down at his brown skin, pulling up his sleeves, and sure enough, his skin had donned a shade of blue, and it was the same blue that he found was coloring the being above him. Gerard looked up at the being's arms that circled around the crown of his head, invisible to everyone else. "Look, man, I hear what the other guys are saying about you," Willie let him know. "But don't let them get to you, okay?" Within his strident, metal-colored eyes, there was a sharpness and a sadness. Did Willie pity him? Gerard wondered, hesitant to let his words warm him. Willie turned and left to continue his duties for the day, and Gerard immediately escaped into his head. Some new feeling deepening the blue on his skin, the color crawled onto his fingertips and up his neck. "Hey, sis," Duane tapped him on the shoulder, and Gerard turned around so quickly it startled him. "Look, I'm not going to ask you if you're okay, girl. These so-called brothers are giving us hell." And Gerard solemnly nodded his head. Duane held his hand out, and Gerard took it. They interlaced their fingers, which led to a hug, a warm embrace shared between them that felt like a flame that could have turned him red. The being that stood above Gerard had always been, and as far as he knew, would always be, and that it seemed to exist beyond him in a way Gerard couldn't quite put his fingers on. He remembered seeing it for the first time, trying to grasp at it, but it was immaterial. Except in the way that sometimes he could feel its hand on top of his head, guiding him. Except in the way that sometimes he could feel its eyes looking through his own. And in the way that sometimes its blue shining reflected on his skin. And that same blue now covered most of him. Gerard walked past the newly built areas that his brothers had just finished building, and more, the final form of this construction project was beginning to reveal itself, and more, Gerard could feel the urge to tear it down. The blue being above him had begun putting its hand on top of his head now. He could feel its heat, even through his hard hat. With one blue arm, strengthened by the being above him, he bent a group of metal bars put into place by one of his brothers in the department just to let off steam. "Sis?" Duane was behind him. "What do you think we're even building?" He put a hand on his shoulders, when suddenly one of his brothers jumped from behind the metal bars he bended, gasping for air. Gerard scrunched his eyebrows. "Thank you." The brother hugged him, and it caught him off guard. "I thought I was going to be trapped behind those bars forever," his brother said, dusting himself off. "It was so dark in there. Deeper than I expected." He looked down. Gerard had saved one of his brothers unexpectedly, and in return, maybe he'd saved a part of himself too. Duane looked at him with a smile. "All right now, my blue brother." Willie ran up behind them, out of breath, as though he had rushed to tell them something. "I think there's some other brothers trapped in here too." And without the being's guidance, Gerard began to know something new, as it had always been. that it was a job of the brothers in A53 to build, but that sometimes it was their job to demolish too.
Gemini. I fall in love with my friends, worship at their altars, offerings of mixtapes, movie ticket stubs, canary-colored concert tickets, tattered club wristlets, kept secrets whispered at dawn. I am the one she calls at 2 a.m. to talk about him. He is always the same boy child in different bodies, charming with wide-toothed fangs, ego bruiser, sexy, unavailable. I still think of that lost Gemini, waking me up at 2, weekends overstuffed suitcase packed, witch cackling howls of joy. Faces of 2, mask always brighter. She is the gem in the eye of all that behold her. But I prefer unpolished her, makeup free, raw. I still think of that lost Gemini, splitting my heart in 2. She ghosted, I'm haunted, ripped me open, stole our magic. Did I love too much? Exhausted, phone on redial, just too much me. Is attention seeking toxic when it's nutrients for survival? Well, I'm fucking starving. Since she fled with no words, haven't loved quite the same, haven't worshipped as easily. I shapeshift like all those fuckboys, knows what to say or when to leave, be the friend you need, but never need. Atticus Finch. Barefoot seniors trotting absent-mindedly, lush manicure lawns, Victorian-style buildings called whimsical names like Mother Goose. Protest signs gathering cobwebs in unmarked closets, faded radical beliefs from teachers dressed in tie-dye, called by their first names, John or Catherine. Jimi Hendrix' Red House blasting through the parking lot. I first cradled your body and held your story in my early teen hands, looking for my father in the browning, curled-up pages of Things Fall Apart, and finding a father figure in To Kill a Mockingbird, finding you, Atticus Finch. Set in the South, my new hellscape, something about a man who fights with intellect instead of fists feels safe. Things aren't always what they appear. We met again when I was kicked out of the well-funded classroom, stealing the cash box from a dance, cheating on the math final, stealing $20 from L.A. Reid Jr., 4 years prior to his Sweet 16 birthday on MTV, waiting from a scolding from one of 2 black women in the building. Her short silver dreads bounced enthusiastically across the backdrop of her Nelson Mandela poster. She looks me up and down. Sister, maybe you should rethink your criminal activities. I know what I did was wrong. Sure, that's true, but you aren't even good at it. Still the most honest conversation I've ever had with an adult. Time for public school. Chipped concrete windowless buildings, immaculate football stadium, brightly painted cheerleaders, and the fiercest step team in the region. Hot 97 with Chris Lova and Poon Daddy pussing through the bus ride boondocks. Loud, urgent moans from the band room. Ultra sheen for the baby hair and baby powder. Bathroom confrontations. ROTC slick uniforms. We meet again, Atticus. Hiding in the bathroom from another unwanted ass beating. I reread you for the senior advanced placement literature class. I'm a sophomore and a freak. Blue hair, black fishnets, and combat boots never caused so much chaos. Before, I never got attention before. and now it's all bad. You, one of my few friends, remind me to be accountable for my behavior. I write the best essay in class. It still feels like cheating.
It's early August, 2024. We're in San Francisco. All the curtains are open, but it's a dark, foggy day, so the lights are on. We need more light on days like today. It's cold, so we're wearing sweaters. We're sitting on opposite sides of the dining room table. You love this table. It is a solid wood, Scandinavian, mid-century circular design. You spent months looking for the one, and this one was well worth the wait. Every month, I make sure to oil it, working to preserve and conserve what you love. There are flowers between us, sunflowers and red dahlias. You got them from the farmer's market last Sunday morning, because you knew it was going to be a hard day for me, and you know I love sunflowers. It's the two of us sitting here. It's a weekday morning. We're having breakfast. We talk about something inconsequential. Our conversation hums with chuckles between bites of English muffins, yogurt, and granola. We smile at each other through sips of coffee. But it inevitably arrives. A moment of prolonged silence, a piece of time that lands and expands into a terrifying quietude, a stillness that reminds me of the life outside of this table and this food and these sunflowers. That stillness coalesces into a voice that comes from a place I can't see, somewhere beyond this morning and this fog, but with a gravitational pull I have never been able to escape. How long ago did you leave us? They ask. This is a question you can't hear. This voice doesn't talk to you. This place doesn't tug at you, no matter where you go. This voice brings me closer to the equator, and those echoes are always beckoning me to come back home. But there is no home to come back to. By so many metrics, the decomposition of my homeland, Venezuela, is unimaginable. Millions of separated families, millions walking through jungle and braving hell for the promise of crossing a border, billions of our dollars diverted to personal pockets, decades of escalating violence. This August week alone, thousands have disappeared into unknowable places of torture and death. It's been decades since my compatriots and I have been trapped under the heel of this brutal regime. It has been 15 years since I left my parents in Caracas, and it'll probably be years before I can go back again. On this August morning, it's been a couple of days since the Venezuelan government unabashedly declared itself a dictatorship by parading around fake electoral results as facts. But I've nurtured this broken heart as far back as I can remember. It becomes harder to keep the act of normalcy going the longer this breakfast lasts. The voice you cannot hear beckons an answer. The weight of all of these dates and timelines chokes me slowly, like a cold hand wrapping itself finger by finger around my neck. The hand you cannot see tenses and strangles me suddenly. All my muscles slacken. I drop my head and release my hands. The spoon clinks the bowl as it falls. Yogurt splatters on the smooth, moisturized wooden surface of this table. The frequency of that sound breaks the surface tension in my eyes, and a stream of tears falls down my cheeks and salts my breakfast. They follow the indentation of all the tears cried in all those dates and all those timelines, the sadness of thousands of unfulfilled prophecies. This noise jolts you, and you look at me. You see, I'm heaving into my hands like I'm being suffocated. I'm sorry, I start. I always begin with an apology when the voice takes me here, because it feels unfair of me to ask anyone to empathize with this breathlessness. There is the pedestrian dislocation of leaving home, but there is this additional distress of having to see my home country sink further and further into this darkness. I cannot ask you to sit in this gloom with me as we have breakfast on this foggy August morning surrounded by flowers. I feel selfish. There's no reason for both of us to be this sad. I try explaining myself since I know you can't feel this choking hand. I try translating this voice that asks questions because when I cry about Venezuela, it is in a broken English. You know, my English tends to break in these moments, a reminder that my unplaceable American accent is nothing more than a thin veneer sitting atop my mother tongue. So much of what I present is a performance that's decades in the making and constantly being perfected. But there are moments where I have to break character. I breathe out slowly. I look at you through the saline of my tears as I tell you my heart's desire. I just want my parents to be safe. I wipe my tears with my sweater cuff and irritate my eyelids between heaves. I push my wet fingers into my eyes to quelch that burning sensation I've created for myself, so that all that you can see is my face is my mouth when I ask you out loud, when will this suffering end? But I shouldn't have asked. I know it as soon as the words come out of my mouth, because this is a question for these voices that control this choking hand. That voice that asks, those voices that guide. This is a question for my prophets. My prophets have no face. They do not live under the yoke of time. My prophets are presences I can't place, and ancestors I recognize. They are living, they are dead, they are human, they are animal, mineral, and vegetable. They were warriors, they were artisans, they were historians, they were homemakers. They speak with heterogeneous tones, but their message is always delivered in unison. I've carried these prophets with me my whole life. They have guided me since before I made choices, and they have led me well this far. They brought me to this foggy morning, this table, this chair, this bowl of yogurt. My prophets have brought me to you. In my dislocation, they enforce the gravity that pulls me back to Venezuela, because they remind me that I am of a land of gold and pearls. They brandish their swords and they sing to the glory of a brave people, my brave people. These prophets constantly declare Venezuela is my home. But for this question of when deliverance will come to my brave people, my prophets have no answer. They've never had. When I ask them when this suffering will end, they become alabaster faces, motionless marble statues. They leave me cold. I scream into the naves of their empty cathedral chamber upon abandoned chamber. I bring them numbers. I ask them for projections. The prophets told me to study numbers, to find comfort in sequence and logic. Yet my reports sit before me, providing more anguish than fulfillment, because the logic I understand takes these trends of Venezuela's destruction to places I can't describe. And in this pain, all they have ever offered me are hard surfaces that deliver my voice back to me in a distorted howl. I beg them to come back and direct me once more towards the light. I think to myself that if they keep pulling me back to the equator, they owe me their presence now. But my prophets don't like it when I make demands. And on this August morning, you see my spectacle, and you think my question needs an answer. And you think the answer to my question needs to come from you. You want to answer this question because you love me. and you love me in ways I don't understand. Your love is a well with a bottom I cannot see. You want my prophets to stop pulling me back because you and I are each other's home now. You have seen the damage that they have wrought. My prophets are a leash that never loosens, a rope that is indented deeper and deeper into my flesh, year after endless year of struggle. At this yogurt-splattered table, you shove your chair and you stand behind me. You put your textured left hand, sprouted with ginger hairs, on my shoulder. You move it down and start rubbing the small of my back as I hold my head in my hands. I feel the cool you emanate penetrate through the many layers I have on and hit my boiling, suffocating insides. And I'm reminded of the quenching power of your love. But you still knew what you needn't have done. You answer the question that has no answer. If your parents leave, you never have to think about that place again, you say. The prophets don't like this answer. I told you they don't like it when we talk back. My prophets are reanimated in their fury. They are more irritated than my eyelids. They return to their abandoned pulpits and set their words on fire. The path of conditionality and dismissal is not the course that they have laid out for me. They label your response a blasphemy. Their anger expands infinitely as it knows no space and time. There is nothing to think about but that place. They remind me. Forever. After their arduous dismissal of your kindness, my prophets compose themselves. Their indescribable features soften, and they become the guiding voices I recognize. They look down on me, collapsing onto my breakfast on this wooden table, with what seems like kindness and compassion. The same hand that suffocated my neck is now offered to me in mercy. My ancestors and guardians tuck my yogurt-splattered hair behind my ear and caress my rough, wet cheek. I look up from my hand to find the light emanating from their visage, floating like fog over the sunflowers and dahlias. Their faceless eyes look into mine, and I cannot look away. Their mouths open and gnarled noises emerge, but these distorted voices coalesce as they declare to me in unison, "Ay, mi vida, my love. There is no such thing as leaving."
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. That was Club Chicxulub. Please give it up again for Kelechi Ubozoh with Relationship Status, Don't Tell the Shark, Gemini, and Atticus Finch. Chelsea Davis, an excerpt from Augurs Ill. Kristin Eade, Chameleon Queen. Duane Horton, Blue Brother. And Alexandra Clemente Perez, Summer 2024. Please look up these amazing artists, follow their work. They're going places, they have gone places, they're amazing, we love them. Also, please consider if you're able to, we have the tip bucket and the Venmo QR codes.
The tip bucket indeed is here, and honor system, if you tip, there's a sticker for you. Say hello to our little friend. Sirocco, here he is. We have a journal as well. Club Chicxulub Journal is still accepting submissions until October 1st. So, anybody in here, you are welcome. Please send us your work, your weirdest, the most fucked up thing that everybody rejected. We would love to read it. This is DevBot Shipwreck Detective. Lauren C. Johnson, and I'm Matt Carney. Venture forth and be beautiful. Thank you.